So, welcome to today's session. My name is Samuel Kadima, and I'll be the coordinator for this session today. Our speaker for the day is Peter Muturi, who is an experienced software engineer and also a technical mentor. He's going to take us through getting started with Git, and we look forward to learning from him and also interacting with him. So you'll be getting to know more about him in a few. But before we go there, I'd like to first give you a quote here, quote of the day. And the quote for today is, may you live all the days of your life. So what does that mean? So of course you may be alive, but you're not living. So may you have a life which you can say that you are alive. You're not dead when you are alive. I hope I've made sense. Yeah. So, on our agenda today, uh, of course, we're supposed to start with an icebreaker, and then you're going to learn about the community. And after that, we are going to have a question and answer session at the end. But in between, in case you have any questions, feel free to ask questions. I'd like to say that we have limited the abilities of people to speak and also to share videos because we've been spammed before, but people can be able to participate by commenting on the chat. So if you have any questions, you just ask them on the chat and I'll be able to ask them on your behalf. And also, in case you have anything you want to participate during the icebreaker at any point, just send your comments on the chat and we'll be able to get them. So yeah, so that is it. Onto our icebreaker. I'd like you to respond on the chat and let us know what would make you the happiest person in the world and why. So I'm looking at the chat, looking to see what would make you the happiest person in the world and why. So I'm looking for the comments. I hope you're typing. So yeah, so let me give you maybe 2 seconds. And maybe as we wait for the comments, maybe we can hear from Peter. So Peter, maybe you can tell us what would make you the happiest person in the world and why?
That is a very interesting question. What will make me the happiest person in the world? If Manchester United could go back to the Alex Ferguson era, I think that would actually make me happy. It's been like more than 5 or 10 years just suffering through this team, so I think that will actually make me happy.
Okay, very interesting. I hope I could. I was a football fan. I wish I was a football fan. Maybe I could understand what kind of happiness that would be. Um, but since I'm not, I may not relate. So you guys, I was hoping that you'll be typing on the chat anything that would make you happy, uh, anything that would make you the happiest person in the world, and why. Do we have anyone? I would like to comment on the chat. It will be great to hear about that. Anyone? Waiting to see any comments on the chat. Any comments? Is the question too hard? Okay, so maybe I can tell you about what would make me happy. Of course, just a world where everyone has enough, everyone is satisfied with what they have. There is peace, and people do not lack anything, and people have hope. People share things. Yeah, people are not selfish. People obey rules, like maybe traffic rules, for example. So such an environment, for example, imagine boda boda guys using the right side of the road, not the wrong side of the road and such. So I can see Wanjiku saying good governance in Kenya. Okay, so I think that is it. We can move on. Since guys, I asked the wrong questions, I would have asked what would make you sad. Probably that would have a lot of input. Maybe you're already happy, and I'm asking you what would make you happy. So I'm going to tell you about Nairobi DevOps community. So Nairobi DevOps community is a community made up of DevOps enthusiasts. And who are DevOps enthusiasts? So these are just people who are interested in DevOps, people who are either already in the career of DevOps or people who are seeking to start a career in DevOps. So we have experts in our community, and we also have people who are newbies. So our goal with the community is to be able to provide an environment where these people can be able to share ideas. These people can be able to connect. They can be able to help each other grow. So our mission is to create a supportive and inclusive community that supports that values diversity and supports learning and growth. So in our community, we are open to everyone joining and participating in anything, no matter the tribe, no matter the race, no matter where they are coming from, whether they are male or female. So everyone has the we have an equal space for everyone to be able to to share knowledge, to ask questions, and to grow. So no matter where they are from, whether they are skilled, whether they're not skilled, so everyone has equal opportunity for that. And then our vision is to be a leading DevOps community in Nairobi and beyond, which we already are, already a leading DevOps community. So, and we want to maintain that status. So, and even have more impact as we are leading because we have of the impact that we have. So we want to continue having more impact and continue leading. So in case you want to join the community and help, you can, one of the ways that you can be able to do that is by volunteering your time to help us in running workshops and on any topic that you have expertise in. And then you can also connect us to professionals, people who you think can add value to other people in the community, and you will give us feedback. So in case you find out that there is anything that we are doing well, tell us that we are doing well. If there is anything you think that we can improve on, let us know so that we can improve. You can also share our posts. So we normally post on our socials, and uh, you can follow us on our socials and then reshare what we post. But you can also post. So we have channels we have LinkedIn group, which everyone has the ability to post. So in case you encounter any resources that you think you can share with people, you can share them in the group. You can also share in our WhatsApp group. So and also if you have maybe you write articles, maybe any videos, if you are working on something and you got some bugs and then you figure out how to solve the problem, you can share it with other people so that they don't have to spend more time debugging if it's something you can help them to solve. So you can also join us and help us in organizing these events and also branding, maybe creating design graphics, that those things like posters, designing shirts, logos, and such things. So if you think you're skilled in such things, you can help us. Even if you are a photographer, you can join us and take photos in our events. So that is it. And in case you want to join the community, you can just scan this and then you'll be able to join. So we have LinkedIn, which has right now we have over 1,500, same as WhatsApp. We are over 1,500. So you can join WhatsApp. So this is the new group. So we have one group that is already full. This is the second one. And then we also have Twitter. So join us and repost our posts when we post them, so that we can have more impact. We can reach out to more people, and more people can be able to join these sessions and benefit. So now I would like to invite our honorable speaker, uh, His Excellency Peter Muturi. So the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much. When you want these people to kill me when you start saying honorable, I did not vote yes to any financial bill whatsoever. So please, do not come to greet me or to pass your greetings, tafadhali.
Okay,
Well,
okay.
again, as Kadima said, I am known by the name Peter Muturi. I am a simple person. I think the most that I say is usually I love to code, and I also like one team that gives me stress, and that is Manchester United. So that is, I think, my brief introduction, and I'm excited to actually be here so that we can be we can be able to see what Git is all about. Let's hope by the end of the session we might have learned one or two things about Git. Now, before I jump to the slides really fast. Maybe I can pose a question for the next minute or two on the chat. When you hear the term Git, what is evoked in your mind, or what comes to your mind when you hear the term Git? Or what are some of the rumors you've heard about Git? Maybe for the next minute or so on the chat, Kadima, you can assist me uh, in checking the chat. Maybe what have you heard about Git?
So I can see here on the chat, James Jage has said version control. And then we have Isaac Ngeno, who also said VCS, which I think he meant version control system, probably something like that. So anyone else? I think those are the only ones that we have so far.
Thank you. I think thank you very much. I think Isaac might have maybe had a snippet a snippet of the slides, but indeed, Git. When you mention Git, then the biggest thing you actually come into play with is what is version control. Now, version control, as most of us know it, or maybe we might have heard, is actually the practice of tracking and managing changes in uh, software files, or maybe just what you refer to as source code. Now, in some places, you might not see it being referred to as version control system. You might see it being referred to as source code management. So you'll see SCM. Now, version control system, as the name suggests, it's just you trying to manage or tracking the changes that you actually make through the lifetime of, maybe say it can be as simple as one file, or it can be grand as through managing and tracking changes that you do in an application. So this application might be big, something like WhatsApp. It might be small, like a pet project that you're doing, maybe learning how to create a navigation bar from scratch. Now, in version control or in source control systems, when you start to talk about them, or when you start to think about them, definitely something that you will see arise are maybe the categories that they can actually be placed into. And these categories, most of them you will see are usually two. But nowadays, you'll also see there is one that is coming up, and the two that are main ones, or the two main categories that you'll see in version control system, is what we refer to as centralized and distributed. But you can also add another one here called local. But we'll talk about centralized and distributed most of the time. Now, In centralized version control, this was the predecessor to distributed. In centralized version control system, as developers, software engineers, or maybe software architects, as how you would like to prefer to categorize them, they will use version control in this sense. And what is the main difference, or how did these two actually work? In a centralized distribution, in a centralized version control system, what you'll find is that all the files or all the source codes live in one server, and the developers or the people that are working on the project would actually need to actually always be connected to the servers, in that when you're making a change, you upload to the server. When you want to get the latest change, you actually download from the server. So you will always want to be connected to that. Now, some of the different types of version control systems that fall into this category is one that is quite famous, which is SVN, or in full, you can actually call it Subversion. Some of these pain points actually continued for a very long time, until a guy by the name of Linus Torvald, I think around 205, decided that, you know what, maybe I've had enough of the pain points that the centralized system brings, and I think I'm going to try to sort them out. And this is when he came up with what we refer to as Git, which is a not a sub, but a version control system that falls under the category of distributed. All right. Now, in distributed version control systems, they sort of work in a similar way to centralized, but now the difference is you, one, do not need to be always connected to the central server, and then every person can actually get a full working copy of the source code, and they can be able to work through it. So most of the time when you see in these images like the one that I've depicted here, when you see full repository, you will see sometimes it is labeled as local repository, and this allows you to be able to have a full copy, and you can work or make your work contributions, and then after that you can be able to, one, push to the main central server. Now, the whole point about having distributed and also sometimes centralized was that in version control system, you need to have a single source of truth, so that when you want to get the latest code, you actually are going to be to work on one server. You don't need to go to maybe a different place to find the latest code or the latest version of your application. You just need to go to one centralized place, and those are some of the similarities that actually fall between the central and the distributed. Now, there is a lot of theory into it, and it's an interesting thing to read. So kindly make sure that you also get to read and see, one, some of the advantages that they have, and some of the disadvantage of using one system. Something else you'll also see is that there are certain things that in one system, maybe if I can jump the gun, mean something completely different to the other. And one of those things is something like Git commit. When you do Git commit, when you're working with Git, that means something completely different when you're working with SVN or Subversion. So make sure that you're actually able to read on it. It's an interesting thing to actually go through it. Now, if I can go to the next bit, which is why we are here. And I'd like also to pause again, maybe to hear from you guys. Maybe you have heard of Git. So the question then is, why Git? Why would I use Git over anything else? Kindly just post your answers on the chat. Kadima will assist me in reading them out. So maybe for the next minute, tell me, why Git? Why do you think Git should be used, or why would you put Git as your first choice?
Okay, looking at the chat, I can't see anything so far. I hope you are typing. So I can see Isaac has said, keep track of changes and collaboration. Anyone else? I think that is what we have so far.
Thank you, Isaac. That is one of the reasons, but also something else. that why you'll actually go for Git is sort of a de facto when it comes to version control system. Regardless of the system or the remote system they will use, either they will use, I'll explain in the future, either they will use GitHub, or either they will use GitLab, you'll always find that the version control system that most people use is actually Git. That is number one. Number two, Git has a very large community. Like the support system that is available on Git is actually very large. Another bit about it is also Git is also open source. You can be able to find some of the errors they can be fixed like really, really quick. And that is one or two of the reasons that you can actually choose Git. And personally, for me, I think it's because of the community, because we all know that as you're developing or through the journey of software development, you'll actually be faced with a lot of challenges. And if there's a big community, then that means that you can be able to actually be debugged really, really quick. Now, if I can now jump to the practical bit, because I believe that is why we are here. And the next slide for that is what we have as a simple Git workflow. Before I jump to the code, let me just explain. Now, in Git, or even as it tracks your changes through your files, then there is a figurative principle that we ought to understand that will assist us in knowing where are our files, or what are the different stages that our files is going to fall into. Now, the main two ones, just to reduce confusion that I came up with, one, we have the staging area, and we also have what we refer to as the working directory. Now, the working directory here is your normal folder or your normal file where you're not tracking any changes with Git. This is just working independent of Git. And now in the staging area is when you take a file and you tell Git, can you be able to track the changes in this file? Now, allow me to switch to the terminal so that we can be able to see how this looks like practically, and then we will continue like that. I will be jumping back and forth from the slides and back to the terminal. So allow me to do that.
So Peter, we also hope that the music in your background is licensed, so that at least our video is not it can be legally on YouTube.
All right, no problem. So I understand. Sorry. Now, I have a simple file. This is index. It's a HTML document. I will be using this to walk through the different thing. Now, one principle that I actually love in regards to computing is that in a computer, everything ends up being a file, whether it is a folder or whether it is just an individual file. And the way that we can be able to tell this is always to check the contents of a computer, especially with bias to Unix-based computers, so that is the Unix-based operating system. So that is either one, if you're using the Mac OS or Linux. This is a folder that only has one file, as per what you know. But in most folders, you will always find that we actually have even hidden files. For instance, here you can see we have two, one that is a single dot and another one. This is just for configuration for Linux to know how to deal with the folder. Now in Git, before you do anything, you actually have to make sure that the folder, which now I will call it sort of my working directory, has to be initialized for it to actually be considered to be a repository. Because a repository is just a folder, but now with a fancier name because Git is tracking it. And how do we create a repository? There's different ways to creating a repository. You can do one online. We'll see that by the end of the call. But you can also do one that is local. And on the local bit, all you have to do is, one, either go through the long way of creating the folder yourself, like I did here with one called DevOps, and then add files. Or alternatively, you can use what you refer to as the git command, which is the git init. Now, the git init command can either take in an option or you can leave it without an option. Now, since I am already inside a folder, I am going to use the git init command without options. If I wanted to add an option, maybe I would have passed in a folder like, let's say, test trial, like that. And this would create a new folder that is already initialized to be a Git repository. Now I can check that again using the command ls-a to list everything, and you can see inside my DevOps folder, I don't have any additions. But if I was to change my directory to actually go to test and do ls-a, you will see there is a very important folder that is called the .git. And inside this folder is where you will find that most of the configurations for Git and even the logic in how it is able to do whatever Git does, from how you're sending commits to how it interprets branches, as we will see as we progress. Now, that is one way you can use the Git init. But since I already have a folder, I am not going to do that. So allow me to also delete this. Just that was for demonstrating purposes. So I'm going to remove the test folder like that. And then I'm going now to do git init over here. Once I do that, Git is a very responsive version control system, because with whatever command that you're doing, you will always have a response thrown back to you. Now, I've done git init. It will tell me you have initialized a Git repository, but it will say it is empty. But when you look at my folder, you can see it is not empty. All right, I already have a file, and the file also has contents. Now, as we stand, I only have one thing existing, and that for me is the working directory. Now, in the past, what would happen is that you would need to always run commands to understand the state of your repository. But nowadays, we've been lucky enough that we have integrated development environments and also text editors that have some small features that can allow us to know the state of our file. Now, even before I jump to the command, you can see, if you look closely at my index.html file, at the far right end of it, you will see I have a U. And this U is usually, when you hover over it, you'll see untracked. And this is courtesy of VS Code having a system or a version control system integrated into it that usually works best with Git. But we'll see how we can be able to use it. Now, remember, we said we have two areas. Number one, we have the working directory, and we also have the staging area. And in the onset of things, we said that version control is the ability to track modifications and also changes in your files in your source code. So right now, there's a command that we use to always check the status of our repository, and that is the git status command, like so. Now, if I do git status, again, I will have feedback thrown at me, and you can see it will tell me, one, your own branch master. We'll see what branches are. And then it will tell me no commits yet. We'll also see what commits are. But then there's an important message that is there that tells me untracked files. And then in the untracked files, there's a small message that shows me how can I be able to track that file. So when you say untracked file, this is a file that, yes, Git knows it is present, but it is not concerned with it because it's not going to track the changes that are going to be there. And I'll demonstrate. Right now, we have just a small thing or small content inside our index.html. I can come and add maybe, let's say, a title and say, hello world. But you don't see anything changing. You just see a U as we did. So then I need to tell Git, can you please track this file so that I can be able to monitor the changes that I make over the course of my development? And how then do we tell Git to track our file? We already have a hint over here, and you can see it is git add. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going just to say git add, and then I'm going to add the file. And immediately I do that, you will see also on my file, the letter has changed from U to A, which when I hover over it, I'll see added or something just added. Once I do that, now Git knows that I have told it, can you please make sure that you start tracking this file? Now, if I was to go back and do git status again, now you see my feedback or the response I'm getting from Git is a bit different. I do not get untracked files, but I'm told one first on the branch that I am in, and then have I made a commit? No. And then it tells me changes to be committed. All right. And in changes to be committed, now this is the most important bit. When you talk about a commit is creating a reference point. You can think of it as taking a screenshot. All right. You're taking a screenshot of the changes that you currently have in your file. And that is what a commit means in Git. Remember I said for the different categories in VCS or in version control system, they might mean different things. So maybe in your free time, you can check what commit means in Subversion. So in our commit, then we can make a change. But make sure that as you work through your commits, we'll talk about what are some of the best commit strategies that you can undertake for ourselves. So for now, I am just going to do a simple commit so that you can progress with the workflow that we have. Now, what we have right now is our file is in the staging area awaiting to actually be committed. All right. So remember our working directory, and we also have a staging area. So usually the Git workflow is a bounce from the different stages. So from the working directory to the staging area, back to the working directory to the staging area, back to the working directory to the staging area. And I'm going to demonstrate this by adding another file to our folder. And this file is just going to be styles.css. Now, once I do that, you will see now my file also has a letter to it. Now, if I do my git status like so, you will see, okay, I am having one file waiting to its changes to be committed, but another one is waiting for it to be tracked. No matter how many times you add a new file to your repository, Git will only track it when you explicitly tell it to actually track it. So now, the next step for me to allow Git to be able to track the changes in my styles.css is actually to just go and tell Git straight ahead, can you please track our styles.css, like so. All right. Now, before we even move further, you also need to understand Git does not track empty folders. So for instance, if I was to come here maybe and create a new folder like so, and I do git status, just to check the status of our repo, you will see that my folder is not actually being listed as a content available. But remember, in our computer, this is actually taking space. But to Git, that is just nothing. It doesn't exist. What is there to track? Nothing. We'll talk about how we can be able to make such folders to be tracked and things like that. All right. Now, when you continue to add your files and telling Git to add them or to track them, sorry, one thing you will, maybe the question in mind is, are we supposed to only use Git when you're tracking just a single change and then that is just about it? No. The nature of a file, as you're running it through the staging area and so forth, also a file has different states. And the different states that we have, number one, we have untracked, and now we have added. But the last bit that you have also in a file is what I want to demonstrate, and that is when we add content to it. Maybe I can add a few like that, as you can see. Once I add my content, then you see that the letter at the end of my file is M, which means modified, because in its entirety, that is actually what will happen. You will tell Git to track it, and then you will make a change. Once Git knows that it's supposed to track a file, it knows, so you have made a change as per the last time that you actually told me to track it. Now, if I was to check my status, you will see that we have the file being in two multiple places. One, it is waiting for the changes to be committed, but then that is for index.html. But then again, it has also been modified from the last time that Git was tracking it, or the last version of changes that we made. And the same can be seen. Let's say, for instance, I add something over here in our style.css. Maybe I want to say margin 0, like that. If I do my status again, because that is the command we will use most of the time to check the status of our repo, you will see both files are in the waiting to be committed, and they also in the modified bit. Now, remember that a commit is a screenshot or a snapshot. Snapshot is the correct word, but for analogy purposes, it is just a screenshot. Now, if you want to take as that snapshot, which will now be a reference point in the history of the changes that you are making, then you make that commit. But if you do not, then you finish up with the changes that you have. And then after that is when you take that snapshot using the git commit command. Now, I do not want to commit the way as of now, because the way my files look. So I am going to tell git to also include the different modifications I've done. Now, if you were keen enough, you notice that I was adding the files individually, something like git add index.html. Now, this might not be viable when you have multiple files, as adding each one and one of every file independently, that will actually be very tiresome. So how do you do it? Now, you can be able to use a shortcut, and the shortcut is just using git add period, which will add all the contents inside that folder. So that is what I'm going to use for now, like that. Now, if I check my status again, now I should only have my file waiting to be committed, like that. Now, commit, we said, is a snapshot, so I'm going to do that. There's different ways you can do a commit. You can just run the command as git commit, like that. When you run it, if you are on Unix-based operating system, command line application will come up to allow you to be able to write your commit. And for the first time, as I'm doing a commit, this is what I'll do. So remember, one of the strategies that we can be able to use in our commits, or some of the conventions you can follow, is limit your commit messages to at least 50 characters. If it is more than 50 characters, then that means that you're actually putting a lot of changes into one commit. Another bit that you can also remember is that in our commit, always follow a sentence case. So you don't have to say at the added changes like this. You don't need to follow this case. You just have to capitalize the first word. Another bit is that when you're working with commits, always make sure your commit messages are in present tense and imperative, so that you don't put them as past. So you don't say added something. So the best way, or the best tool that can assist you to phrase this question is, you start, before writing your message, you ask yourself, what will this commit do? So you then respond to yourself, this commit will. You see, so for instance, this commit will be the initial commit for us, like that. So once I'm done like that, I'm going to save that and then save it. Immediately I do that, now you'll see 2 files changed and I have 15 insertions. That is what the commit is going to do. Another bit that you'll also see, is the commit will also communicate some other information over here. Now, this are not for you. These are just Git's code telling you that this is just a normal file. You can also check for what the code will be for the folders. And just like that, we have made our first commit, or our first historical reference point for ourselves. Now, you also need to know what are some of the historical points that I have in my code base. And the tool that will allow us to be able to do that is a simple tool that is just by principle what you all do, and that is log. So we use the command called git log to check what are our reference points. And what you will see is information that is quite interesting to understand. Number one, you will see commit. So indeed, we made a snapshot, and then you will see a very long number. And this long number, what you will see is it's called a SHA, all right, a SHA-SAM, where SHA stands for Secure Hash Algorithm. It is a unique number that differentiates different historical point. And then the next bit to it, you will see in parentheses, you have a head, and then it is pointing to a branch. We'll talk about what a branch in a few minutes. Now, the head usually stands for the most current place that your source code is in, or the most current place that Git is tracking. And you can see that our head is currently the same place as our main branch, which is master. We'll see. And then after that, you will also get to see who the author for that commit is, and also the date they made that commit, and the message that they added for their commit. And this message also always make sure, as a commit strategy, it is as descriptive as possible. When you're working alone in a project currently, you might just say something that is easy, you will remember. But then again, remember, when you come back to the project, maybe in 2 weeks, you might not remember what one commit message meant. All right. Now, while we're still at commit, let me add another bit to our code. Let's say we are working on a recipe application, and I want to add now the first recipe that we have. And in our recipe, I'm going to add maybe, let's say, a small thing, something like maybe 4 ingredients, and I'm going to have, let's say, onion, like that. And maybe cooking oil, like that. So I have made a change. And in this change, again, I'm going to repeat the process again, which is usually what we refer to as the Git workflow. You add it to be tracked, and then once you add it to be tracked, once you're satisfied with the changes and you want to bundle them together, you commit, and the process repeats itself. So now I can come here and do git status, like so. And you can see I do not have any changes. What I have is I have modified my file, and now I need to add it. And then once I add it, I can be able to commit, and so on and so forth. Now, working might not be as linear as we like to see it in this manner. But before we jump onto that, let me add this and then commit it again. So git add, I'll use the shortcut, and then for a commit message, I will now use the other way you can commit without having to use this way. You can also have a shortcut, and that shortcut is by providing the flag M. So -M to pass on our message. And for that course, -M is we're going to put, again, we ask ourselves, what is this commit going to do? This commit is going to update a new recipe, for lack of a better word, and then we have our new commit. Now, let me pause because I know I've said a lot of information. Maybe in case of any question, you can put it on the chat, maybe for 1 minute. Kadima, you can assist with that.
Okay, looking at the chat, is there anyone with any question so far? Anyone with a question, type it on the chat. So any question from anyone? So there seems to be no question. So I encourage you to post questions immediately you have them, so that by the time I check the chat and Peter is available to respond, you can just go ahead and respond. So keep the questions coming as the session continues. So
all right,
back to you.
Thank you. Another bit is maybe a shortcut you can also use with git commit. Now you realize that we are actually repeating the process with git add, git commit, and things like that. When a file is already being tracked by Git, you don't necessarily need to do the git add, git commit. You can just use it in one line, and I'll demonstrate. Let's say in our styles, I want to have added another bit of code, and that is say 0, like that. If I was to check my status, I would have this as I have modified, so I need to add it again. Now remember, the process is git add dot, but if a file is already being tracked by Git, you don't necessarily need to do that. You can just go straight to commit like that, and then now you'll provide two flags with it. That is -a and -m. Sorry, -m like this. The -a is for git add. That is a shortcut bit about it. So long as the file is already being tracked. This won't work when a file is in the untracked state. But then to reduce the many dashes, you can just add it as git-a m like so, and then you can pass in your message. So what is this commit going to do? It's going to remove all default padding spaces like so. And just like that, we can be able to see that even the letters at the end of our file do not appear again. If I check for status, I should be able to see I have a clean branch. Now, remember, I said that you cannot necessarily have your working being this linear. Sometimes you might want, in as much as I'm working on a recipe right now, how about if I try maybe to see if I can have a different structure to my recipe? Maybe I use numbers, and maybe I want to change it to use Roman numbers and things like that without having to affect the actual recipe. And this is where branches come into play. And this is also one of the features that makes people to actually like or choose Git over some other version control system. So a branch is just a reference point, as the name suggests. If you can think about it like with an analogy of a tree, where a tree is growing, but a tree will always have a branch getting out of the tree. So the rule of thumb is that when you want to work with branches, let's say you are working on a feature. Let's say, for instance, the way WhatsApp has different features from having status and communities. If I was the sole developer, I wouldn't write everything in one place. So what I'll do is I will deviate a bit from my current point and go and do on a different branch, so that even when I want to make other changes, I can be able to do that. Now, before we branch out to a different branch, what I want us to do is check the command that can be able to allow us to be able to list the branches that we have, and that is the git branch command, like so. What you will see, the branch that you're actively in will always be color green. That is for, I think, most Unix-based systems. And then you will have an asterisk at the end of it to show you the current branch. Now, as from, I think, 2020 or 2021, GitHub changed the naming convention for the branches. It used to be master, but nowadays is main. So in VS Code, well, you still, or locally, when you just initialize your repo, it will pick master, but you can't be able to rename it to main, just to follow through with the convention. So how then do we rename a branch? How you do is just you use the git branch, and then you use a flag called -m, which might, in real sense, might mean move. And then you say the branch that you want to move, and then the name that you actually want to add. And that should change. So if you look at my leftmost corner, you can see it changed from master. Now we have main. Now let's say in a small recipe website, I want to change it kidogo, maybe from being ordered to an unordered list. So I'm going to use git. So here you can use different commands. I can start with a simple one and just say git branch and then pass the name. Maybe I can call it Roman, Roman numbering, like this. And this will create a new branch. And how can you confirm this? You just say git branch like so. And you can see now I have main, but you can see I've made an error with numbering and I'm missing a G. So I'm just going to reuse the command that we had before, which is git branch name, and then Roman, and then I'm going to have Roman numbering like so to correct it. If I check again, I should be able to see my changes in effect, and I have Roman numbering. So how then do I get out of my branch, the one that I'm currently in, into the other branch that I've created? I'm going to show a command, but now PS or NB is that in the current branch that you're in, when you want to create another branch, that branch will be created from where you are. So right now I'm in main. So if I go back to, if I switch to Roman numbering, it should be in the current state that main was when I was creating that new branch. So in here, I think this update either came last year. In the past, or if you look at previous video, you will see people using git checkout like this, just to check out that branch, and that should be Roman numbering like so. But also, Git also goes through updates like any other application. So what you will also see right now is a new command called switch. So maybe I can use it to go back to my main branch, and you can see that works, and I am able to go back. So you can use whichever you prefer, because I believe the checkout is still not going to be removed. So you can use whichever you prefer, maybe until one is deprecated. So now I can come here and maybe say switch to Roman like that. Once I do that, now I can come to my code and maybe make changes. So this is ordered. Maybe I want to make it unordered. I'll change this to UL like so. And you can see that is what is going to happen. And then we repeat the process again all over, which is git add, git commit, and so on and so forth. Now, if I come here and do the same process, so I'm going to say git add again, and then I'm going to git commit for that matter. And our message is going to be, what will this commit do? This commit is going to change the numbering system of recipes like that. Now, another commit strategy is that all commit messages, however you write them, you should never end them with a period like that. You just leave them like so. You don't need to end it with a period. And that is how we do our git commit. Now, if I come here and check for the commits that we have, so how do we do that? We do it with git log. Now, when you do it, so long as you have more than 3 commits in your small terminal, you will see this will happen. So what you do is sort of like a paging system. You just continue with your up or down arrow, or you can just continue pressing arrow. And if you want to exit, when you get to the end, you just press Q, and that should be able to end. But if you have enough window space and you just do git log, it will list it normally like so. Now, remember, when we started talking about commits, we said that the head shows the current state of where you are. And now you can see the current changes that I've made in my head are pointing to the Roman numbering branch. All right. Now, this is quite interesting, and this is now the beauty of branches. If we take a look at my index.html, you can see I'm using an ordered list system. But if I go back to my main, you can see it is using the ordered one. So this is the beauty of branches. They can be able to allow us to even experiment on a new feature and things like that. Now, we will take a look on how you can be able to implement or bring those changes back to the main branch. But before that, let me also take a look at a different command that is also very important when it comes to working with Git. So let's say we go back to our numbering system. So let's say git switch to Roman numbering. Now, as I am doing my Roman numbering, I say, let me also change maybe the structure. I'm going to add H2 or something like that, like so. Let me remove this bit and say maybe another recipe, like so. And inside here, maybe before a recipe, I want to test out and give a history of something. So maybe something like that, a small text, figuratively. Now, as I am working through this, maybe my team lead or my supervisor tells me, oh, I have realized when we were working on our recipes, we didn't provide how many or the quantity per the recipe ingredients. And I'm wondering, I am still working on this. How can I be able to work with that? Now, this brings up about a new git command. It's been there, but for this session, it is new. We have what we refer to as git stash. And as the name suggests, it stashes all changes that you are supposed to do separately so that you can work on something else. And then when you're done, you can bring them back. And I'm going to demonstrate. As of now, you can see I have my index.html modified. all right? But my boss has said inside the feature branch where you have for Roman numbering, can you change and provide the quantities? So I come in and I know the work that I'm doing is not fully done, so I can't commit that and I can't add that as of now. So I come and say, let me clear this. I come and say git stash, like that. Once I do, you can see the changes immediately disappeared. And now I can be able to make the changes that I wanted. So for instance, I can come here and say, maybe I'm doing a party. So this can be 10 onions, 50 tomatoes, like so. And then I can come here and say maybe 25 garlics. And after that, I can maybe say 2 liters of cooking oil, all right, like that. Once that is done, then I check the status to see what is happening to my repo, or the status of my repo. I see I've modified, I like it, and then I'm just going to say git add dot. But then we remember, you don't need to say git add and then commit all over again. So I'm just going to say git commit -am, and then I profit. What is this going to do? This commit is going to specify quantity or ingredients quantity, like that. Now I am done, and I've made what? I've made a reference point, and then maybe my boss is clear. He's like, okay, I approve. And then I'm like, okay, let me go back to what I was doing. So now I'm going to use git stash. And remember when I said stash, it stashed the changes away. But now I'm going to bring it with a different command, and that is git stash, and then an added command, which is pop. And when I do it, you can see now the changes that I was working on are going to come on top of what I already committed. All right. And this is one of the beauty of using stash. Now, stash can also become quite advanced. So for instance, let's say I stash this bit, and let me undo that. It can become advanced. So I can stash this bit like so, and then maybe start working on something else. Maybe my boss says, can you try adding images so that people can see what the final result is? And I'm starting to work on it. Is like, can you forget that? Maybe it is not urgent. Maybe let me check and get a response from the customer. So I'm going to do another stash like that. And you can see that disappears. All right. Now, while I'm here, I can be able now to check how many stashes I have. But maybe let's say, even as a human being, you don't remember most of the things. So what are some of the mechanism that you can use to assist yourself now? Every command line application comes with a help or sort of a mini documentation. So anytime you want to check the help of that command, you can say git stash like this, and maybe provide a flag and say -- help, and it should be able to list every option that is in that command, and even giving you what it does. So remember that you can scroll all the way to the bottom, and things like that, as you can see. Now, the command that I want is the list command option, which is going to list all my stashes. So I found it. Maybe I'm going to press Q and escape it, and now just do git stash and then say list like that. And now you can see I am able to do I am able to see, not able to do, I can be able to see all my stashes. You can also be able to invoke a specific stash, but maybe I can leave that to you guys to see. But now when you do git stash pop, it is going to pop the current most stash. So let me minimize this. If I do git stash pop like so, you can see it starts with the image. And then if I do the other git stash pop aborting changes, you can see stash entry is kept in case you need something, and it will be overwritten. And this is some of the challenges that you can be able to solve. All right, with that. Now, I know you can be able to stash a specific, you can be able to pop a specific stash. So let me see if I still have the other one, or I've lost all my changes. Not pop, but list. Yes. So just a moment. So With my pop, remember this is not committed. So if I want to commit this so that I can use the pop, that is one of the ways, but you can still use another one called git stash apply. And in this git stash apply, I want to apply this bit. So copy it and then just showcase it like your local will be overwritten. So let me commit this bit again. So I'm going to add that. And once that is added, this is undone changes. So let me try again. Yes, and now I can be able to have my changes. Now, another bit, this used to happen in your terminal, but another bit that is an advantage to using current day text editors is they come with assistance for you to be able to work through what we refer to as a merge conflict. And you can see this is a merge conflict because it's not sure where to put the line of code, because in a previous version, line 18 is where another recipe was starting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to accept both changes because I know they are going to be needed, and that is just about it. So let's assume I already have an image, and this image is going to be inside my images. We'll download it later, and then I can provide an alt like, so maybe call it picture of end product, like that. And then this is going to repeat the process again, git add, git commit, and so forth. So I'm going to use the shortcut of git commit -am and just say finalize. Finalize. This is going to finalize on recipe structure. All right. So everybody is happy with the changes that we've made, and now they are saying, can you make sure they are applied in the main place? And this is where now we refer to as, can you merge your changes to the main branch? So how do I do that? How I do that is I'm going to make sure that before I merge any new changes to main, I always need to make sure that the branch that I want to merge to main is in the current place that main is. So I'm going to come here and say, first of all, merge anything that is in main here. And you can see now we have an already to date. So now that tells me that when I go back to main and try to merge these changes, what I know is I'm not going to face a merge conflict most of the time. So I am going to switch branches and check out and go to the main, like so. And when I'm here, you can see my changes that were in the Roman numbering are not here, and I want to merge them into main. So that is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to say git merge, and then I'm going to say not main, but Roman numbering, like so. And immediately I do that, you can see all the changes are going to be implemented here. And when you look at your terminal, there's a strategy that happens with merge. This one is called the fast merge. Another one is another strategy is called the ORT, if I'm not wrong. That usually happens when there arises a merge conflict. And now you can see it is able to see the changes that I made so far. So I'm going to pause there and maybe check on the chat to see if there's any questions. Kadima.
Okay, so there are some questions here. There's one person who was asking, that is Isaac Ngeno, wanted to know, he wanted you to redo the commit command. How did you get it out of the shell? I think that is out of Nano, when you did git init.
So out of Nano, let me just demonstrate. Git commit, I don't have a change. Let me go back to Roman numbering so that I can have a git commit to demonstrate that. Roman numbering. Let me just add a simple change like this. I will remove it. And then just say git add, all right? Git add, and then git commit. All command line programs usually have feedback. So for instance, if you take a look at my Nano over here, what you will see is the different options that I can be able to use. So the caret here stands for control. So if you see write out is to save is control O. So when I click control O, just a moment, sorry, a control O, you can see it tells me you want to save. If I click enter, that will be saved. But since I don't want to save it, I'm going to click control C, which is cancel, and then control exit. I don't want to save it, so no. And you can see I've aborted. I hope that answers your question, Isaac. I believe so.
Yes, I believe so too. And then we have Ian Masharia, who asked how to remove. I think he wanted to ask, how do you remove a file from Git LFS?
Maybe he can provide more content on what the LFS bit means.
I think it means large file system.
I am not sure I get the question. But anyway, there's a difference in how. So let's say, for instance, a file is being tracked and I want to remove it. So I can just use git remove and then pass the flag of cached like this, and then the name of the file. So for instance, index.html. And once I do that, you'll see now my file is actually getting untracked. It is no longer getting tracked with git. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to add it back like so. All right. I'm not sure if that is what you wanted to say. And when I add it back, you can see Git is able to return it to the state that it was, which was modified. So it does not lose where it was. Any more questions, Kadimo?
Okay, so there is one more question here from Noen Obiso. Is asking, what are some strategies to solve merge conflicts? Example, I want my branch to have all the updated changes of another branch without me solving these conflicts manually.
All right. That is actually a very difficult question to answer, because what you'll find is, even in big teams, conflict or merge conflicts are usually something that most developers dread. So, for instance, maybe I can answer that question from a point of view you're working in a team. While working in a team, you see, if I'm working in a team, we can't all be working on the same files, because let's say Kadima is working on index.html and is writing completely different content from me. So that is one. Another bit is, before you merge, let's say, to the branch that you want to merge from, first of all, get the latest content that is in that file or in that branch, so that when you come to merge back, you won't actually get the merge conflict. That is what I did. And probably maybe I can try to demonstrate. I don't know if it will go through. Let me remove this so that Git does not say it is modified as such. Still says it is modified. So let me leave it at that. I am not sure it will allow me to check out to a different branch. You should not do this. So let me go to main. I have switched to main. Yes. Now in main, what I want to do is I want to add, maybe, let's say, another p tag. So let's say lorem, and then this time is going to be a bit larger. And while I'm here, I'm going to add, and also going to add a commit to it. So I'm going to add a commit. What is going? So I'm going to test merge conflict. All right. So while I do this, I'm also going to make changes to our Roman numbering so that we are able to see it. So I'm going to add, instead of anything else, I'm going to add a link, and this link is not going to go anywhere. I'm just going to say click me, like that. So again, I'm also going to add this, and I'm also going to commit it. I'm going to say this commit is going to add a link to direct users to a different recipe, maybe, like that. Now, this is the changes that I have in my Roman numbering. If I go to my main, you can see these are the changes that I have. So let me try check first where I am. I know I'm in main, but it's good practice to always check. So that should be with git branch, like so. I am in main. So let me try to do git merge Roman numbering. I hope this causes a merge conflict. And you can see immediately we have a merge conflict. All right. So now, like I said, there are graphical user interface tools that allow you to merge such conflicts, like the one on VS Code. I can be able to see I actually want both. So I might come here and say accept both changes, and that goes. So once I do that, I will check my status. So I need to add it and commit it. Again, the process always continues. So you can see both modified. So I need to come here and say git add, like that, and then git commit, and I'm saying what is this commit going to do. This commit is going to solve a merge conflict, like so. All right, now can we redo the same process, but this time instead of doing that, what you're going to do is I'm going to add a different change, and I'm going to make sure that my change is in order with the main. All right, apologies for the background noise. I think it's raining heavily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to our Roman bit, like that, and I'm going to add another change. And this time maybe I will add a button, like so, and maybe say read more, like that. All right. So in the read more, I'm going to add this change, like that. And once I add it, I'm going to commit it again. Sorry, git add, like that, and I'm going to commit it again.
Hello, Peter. Were you carried by the rains? By the floods? Okay, so does anyone have questions? You can keep them coming on the chat. So I can see Isaac Ngeno asking how to add changes without changing the commit message. So you mean adding tracking changes and then you push them without adding a commit message? Is that what you mean? Peter, are you still here? Isaac, maybe you can elaborate your question a little bit. So it seems Peter is having some challenges. Just allow me a minute to try and get to him. So Peter is joining back. Just a few hitches, but is going to be back in a second. Yes, Peter, I hope you're back now.
Yes, I should be back. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yes.
All right. So now I'm just going to add our commit. So our commit here is maybe, let's say, actually before I add the commit, let me also make a change on our main. So let me switch to our main branch. Sorry, I need to commit it first. Let me do git stash. And let me check out to our main. Now, inside our main, I'm also going to make a change, and this change here, I'm maybe going to add a H2. Just don't mind about the structure, and I'm going to say maybe uh, previous or maybe nutritional value, like that. While I'm still here, I'm going to add it and commit it. So git commit dash am, and maybe say add, what is this commit going to do? Add more information about the recipe, like so. So you see, like what happened previously, if I try to merge my code right now, it will bring a merge conflict. But if I go back to my check out to my Roman numbering bit, and I let me just do git dash pop, like so. And then what I want is I want to first merge. Actually, before that, let me just stash it again so that it is not overwritten. And I want to merge the main first. All right. So that will come, and you can see I have it like that. So after that, I'm going to do git dash pop to have my changes in effect. And I will still have a merge conflict here, but this is okay. This is easier to deal with. So I'm going to say accept both. Now, once this is done, and I have git add like that, and git commit, what will this do? Uh, solve merge conflict like that, like so. Now, if error conflict or commit the shell, if I switch back to my main, and I just want to merge my branch, which is now Roman numbering, I should be able to go through it without having any merge conflicts. Now, maybe something you can also take a look at is Rebase, that you can go read about it, because that is also a way you can be able to effect the changes that you want. Most of the time when you want to combine the changes. But before I leave it, I want to talk about what we refer to as remotes. And that I want to combine it, maybe if Kadima allows me, in our next session, so that we also get to talk about how you can be able to collaborate with other developers uh, in regards when it comes to working on a project, or even with yourself, the process that you can go in what we refer to as Git collaboration. But before we exit, I'm not sure if you guys will receive these slides, but before we exit, allow me to go back to our slides. And in those slides, there's three links that I've provided. So you can maybe take a screenshot of that and go to the links and learn more about Git. There's one link that I provided, which is Atlassian. It's a really good Git resource. It's the best that I've ever seen. So you can check on that, and maybe after that, we can switch to actually the questions academic. Is that okay?
Yes, yes, that's okay. So let me just, so there are no questions on the chat. So I think what I'll do, I'll just share the links, and then maybe you can give, so I'm going to share the links in the chat here. Maybe you can just give final words, then we wind up.
All right, thank you. Git is quite a very big thing. Even you'll see some people writing blogs. These are experienced developers who've worked with Git for like 20 years, but they still say every day is a learning day for Git. So do not be afraid, even when you hear people saying that they know a lot about Git, because everybody is still learning about Git. And different companies have different strategies when it comes to working with Git. So just keep the spirit of learning, and that is just about it. And thank you for coming to the call. I hope even as you exit, you've learned a few things. We cannot finish the whole of Git in 1 hour or 1 hour and 30 minutes. It's just a continuous journey that you always go through. The call is meant to introduce you and even show you maybe a different perspective as to how you can use Git. And I hope even as you exit the call, you've been able to see that. Thank you very much, even to Kadima and his team. And I think I'm going to give the meeting back to you, Kadima.
Okay, thank you very much. So I've shared the links that Peter is talking about. I've shared them on the chat. So you can click on them to be able to access the resources. You can also, Lawrence has already also shared the link for you to be able to join the community. So you can click on that link and you should be able to join the community as well. So at this point, we bring this to an end, and I would like to thank you all for joining the meeting. And we have these sessions every week. We are going to have one next week as well. And at the end of this month, on 27th, we're also going to have a learning series that is going to be about Kubernetes. We are going to have several expert, certified Kubernetes uh, experts that are going to be doing sessions on 27th. It's going to be a physical session. And for that session, actually, is the first session that we are charging. So we are just doing that in order to sustain the community. But the online session will continue being free. So we look forward to seeing you at the physical session. It will be 1,000 shillings in advance. I will be sharing posters by Tuesday for you on how you can be able to reserve a spot. But it will be 1,000 shillings in advance, 1,200 at the gate. But if you are a group of 3, you can be able to pay 800 in advance. So that is it. We'll be sharing more details. Ensure you join the community, follow the community for you to see that information. Have a good night and a good week ahead.